God downloaded something into me, the motivation, the determination to say, this is not what I want anymore. I defended myself because I felt I had to protect myself when no one else, when the people that should have protected me didn't. I was trying to fill a void, an empty void. I was trying to search for peace.
Hello again. This is Legacy Talk 3N. I am so glad to be here today with China Wateroff, one of the young women that God has sent me to mentor. She's indeed a daughter, a spiritual daughter. She's a part of the village for my nonprofit, A Lady and Her Legacy. And it's been an amazing journey with China for the last 2 years as I've watched her grow and I've watched her learn lessons that impact her life and her legacy that she's building for her future children and for the women that she will one day minister to. And we're going to jump right into the talk. Can we talk?
Yes, we can talk.
So I want to begin by just saying welcome. And I'm looking forward to the many things God will give us to do together. And I'm looking forward to watching you mature even the more. And your story is already one of resilience and strength. And I want you to share with the viewing audience a little bit about your childhood and the challenges that you faced as you were growing up.
Yes, well, first I want to start by acknowledging and saying how grateful and thankful I am that you brought me and saw fit for me to be one of the opponents for this as well. I'm just grateful and thankful. And as far as my childhood and the showing the resilience, my mom, I started off with a mom that was mentally ill. So that was challenging in itself. And not only just the mental illness mother, but also a father that was absent. So it was one thing growing up with a mom that was physically there but mentally absent, but it was also another thing to grow up with a father that was mentally absent, also physically absent. So he was never there. And then on top of that, growing up with parents that did not have any kind of educational foundation. Neither of my parents graduated from high school. I don't even think that my mom even finished middle school, if I can remember precisely. But growing up with that led to my parents living in poverty and leading my mom to working in fast food restaurants. And not just fast food restaurants, but also working in the streets of being a prostitute. And also meeting my dad there in the streets where my dad was a hustler. So now my dad's in the streets, he's hustling, he's not there, he's absent, and leaving that with those low-income jobs resulted in homelessness and poverty and instability, insecurity. My parents, they just weren't there. They couldn't provide financially. And not only that, with the lack of financial issues, my mom also left us with bruises. So not only did we have financial abuse, we had emotional abuse, we had physical abuse, and not only the physical abuse, but also sexual abuse from different men that my mom had in and out. So it was just trauma after trauma after trauma, a rubber band of trauma actually. And then that also resulted in me not having the educational foundation. So I didn't start school until I was about 7 years old. But my mom, she took us to church. So I remember Sunday schools. But as far as school, public schools, I never went to public school until I was 7. And that day, I remember that day like it was yesterday because that was the first day that defects came. Because of the bruises that I went to church with, the stories that I was telling them, they called defects, and as if that defects was waiting on me that first day to come to school to find me in the system. With being homeless, they couldn't find us. So as soon as I got into foster care.
Before you finish that, let me go back to this. Am I right to understand, if I remember correctly, that there were 9 of you or 11?
There were, I would say between 9 and 11. I would say between 9 and 11 because I don't remember ever meeting all of my siblings. I only remember the ones that were there with me. It was me, it was my older sister and my younger brother and myself. And then another brother came after that, and there were other siblings before that. So we lost track of number.
Okay, and was everybody taken at one time?
We were all taken at different times.
Okay, different times.
Yes.
Okay.
Into foster homes. So my mom never kept any of her children for the whole duration of their life. And when I first got taken away, me and my siblings, we all got taken away together. When they found me, they found all of us. And we went to a group home for a couple of days and then foster care until I was the age of 18. So,
what was your mindset during those early years? Did you, based on where your life is today, did you always feel a sense of hope, or is that something that just developed over a period of time?
to be honest, back then, I would say I didn't know what hope was. It was all you see, all you get type of situation. I thought it was normal the way that I was growing up. I'm like, this is my lifestyle. So I didn't have anything to compare my lifestyle to because I didn't go to school. So I couldn't see what other kids had that I didn't have. I couldn't see what their parents were able to provide in comparison to mine because I just was not in an atmosphere, especially on top of that, growing up in a projects. I grew up at the university home in Vine City, downtown Atlanta. So I was limited and restricted of what I could compare my life to in comparison to others. So it wasn't that I could say that I had hope. I would always say that I felt different. I always felt like I didn't fit in. I didn't feel that it was what I should succumb to. I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin of knowing that this is not it. So I wouldn't say that it was hope that I would felt. I would say that I just didn't understand what was going on. I didn't understand why my mom worked at Blimpies or Subway and why I have to go to work with her sometimes. I didn't know why I woke up in the park sometimes. I didn't know why I was why we would come home and the locks were on the door and we were getting evicted. I didn't understand or know why we were under bridges or living in and out of shelters or couldn't come and didn't know what I was going to eat or it was just, I just didn't understand.
That was your norm.
That was my norm. So I was a kid on top of that. So waking up, being able to go to the park, that was exciting for me. That's any kid's dream. So I got the best of both worlds as a kid, but now those things have trickled into my adulthood for sure.
I understand. Was there a specific moment or experience in your life during those adolescent years that made you feel like I want to change the direction of my life?
Yes, and I remember this like it was yesterday. That was my 9th grade year in high school. I don't know exactly what it was, and it was just this, I can't explain. It's something as if it was like God downloaded something into me, the motivation, the determination to say, this is not what I want anymore. I remember I've always wanted to run track. Even when I went in foster care, they would have me in programs like Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA and all those things, and they would be out running, playing flag football, and I remember the track. I was like, I always wanted to run track. So, and when I came to high school and I found out they had a track team, I went to the coach and I said, hey, coach, my name is China, I'm ready to run. And he looked at me as a pretty girl. And I was like, no, I have more to offer than that. He was like, well, why do you want to run track? And out of nowhere, I couldn't even believe the words that came out of my mouth because I had never said them before. I told him, I don't want to be anything like my mom. I don't know why I want to run track, but I just know I want to beat the odds. So that was my turning point when I touched the track. And it was ever since then, the track was my battleground where I fought and beat every odd that was against me.
That's beautiful. What opportunities did track open for you? What doors did your track experience open for you? I mean, as far as the scholarships, does anything come from your running track?
Yes, with running track, I was offered a full ride scholarship actually, and on top of that, in addition, an academic scholarship. So though I started school behind and further behind than the normal kids would that had a good foundation, they offered me a full ride scholarship for honors. So I'm like, I went from special ed classrooms to remedial courses to now I'm getting offered gifted and honored scholarship at a college. And I felt that was amazing to me. So, and not only just that it offered me scholarships for academics, but it also offered me a peace and a hope that
There's that word.
the peace and the hope, yes. So that's when I began, okay, well, maybe there's something inside of me that shows that I can do this. But it all started on the track.
My next question was going to be that who or what motivated you to push forward? So we know track motivated you to push forward. Was there any one person or a group of people? Was there anybody as far as human beings that gave you the hope to push forward?
I could think of a few people. One actually is my principal, old principal from when I was in elementary school. And it was always something about her. And it was like she always said it was something about me because I was always in trouble, flipping desks, throwing chairs, going off on teachers, just a defense mechanism that I had. If I felt attacked, I defended myself because I felt I had to protect myself when no one else, when the people that should have protected me didn't. So whenever I would get in trouble, lash out, they would always send me to her office. Hey, send China down to the principal's office. And I had my special little corner and with my name on the desk. That was my area I went to. But it was her. And she always said, whatever it is that you're battling with and fighting through, you're a special little girl and God has his hands on you. And she would always tell me that. And she took me under her wings, brought me a part of her family. And I remember going to church on Sunday. So it was like God was placing people in my life that knew him and had a relationship with him so that I could too begin to follow in that same footsteps. And also my coaches began to install scriptures into me saying, when you touch the track, say this, greater is he that's in me, greater that is he in me. So every time I got on the track, I could do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So as they're instilling the word into me, I applied that as power to the track, to triumph, and to track was my outlet. So they motivated me, track motivated me, and my principal and all my teachers. Every teacher I came across motivated me and always told me, you can do anything you put your mind to. You're different, you're special, and keep your head down and focused.
Mm-hmm. This is where that phrase was coined, it takes a village. Many children and adolescents don't make it because of parents, but they make it because of a village that they were blessed to have. What are some of the biggest obstacles that you've had to overcome physically, mentally, to achieve the success that you have achieved at this point in your life? What were some of the greatest obstacles?
The greatest obstacles, I would say, were mostly mentally. There were times I felt lonely all the time, even though I was surrounded by people. I had a whole track team. I had my coaches. I had a foster care parent that did the best that she could to the best of her ability. But I always felt lonely because I always felt that I didn't fit in. I didn't feel that anybody could understand what I was going through. To grow up motherless, fatherless, familyless, just not understanding the physical abuse, the mental abuse, that being a child, how do you deal with all of that, the weight of the world, of the weight of trauma on your shoulders, when nobody can 100% understand? I dealt with shame, I dealt with doubt, I dealt with guilt, because at times I felt like it was my fault that I went through this. I felt it was my fault that my father told me that he didn't want to be in my life. I felt it was my fault that my mother was incapable. It was always the guilt, the shame that I didn't want to tell people what I was going through or how I felt, because I felt like I always had to figure it out on my own. If I asked people to be there for me, they weren't there. So I was like, well, why tell them? Why ask for help? I have to figure it out on my own. So always that loneliness.
Some more mental.
Yes.
And mental, emotional.
Mental, emotional. And on top of that, I saw through distractions try to get a hold of me through high school and through college, but it was God's grace that kept me covered, as though the distractions tried to take me off and knock me off course with guys, with drugs, with alcohol, with hookah, those addictions. I had to overcome those things because I was trying to fill a void, an empty void. I was trying to search for peace, tried to search for hope, but didn't know what I was searching for at that time, and couldn't understand or quite understand exactly what it was. And then I would say about 2 months ago, the biggest obstacle that pierced my heart and stung me for until 2 months ago was verbally hearing my father tell me, "You're not my daughter. I don't want anything to do with you because you're ruining and messing with my money and my livelihood." So to hear my father that is physically there be absent and make a conscious decision and a choice to not be a part, that was more piercing than understanding that my mom was mentally ill and did the best that she could.
Yeah. So you said up until 2 months ago, what happened to 2 months ago to release you from that baggage?
I would say I went through intense counseling where we wrote letters after letters after letters, just sitting on the sofa, just sinking into my own doubts, to my own fears, to my own shame. I sat in it. And as God sat me down in it, and when he sat me down in it, it opened my eyes to realize you still have unforgiveness. You still have this shame. You still have this doubt. This is where your insecurities are coming from. And I cannot secure you if you keep holding on to this memory. So it was the memories that I had to overcome over my past, the memories of being disappointed, the memories of being let down. Those are the obstacles I had to overcome. Memories.
That's powerful. What role has your faith in your community and friendships had? What role have they played in helping you have that will to succeed?
Honestly, I would say friends back then, I had friends that were headed down the wrong road. And I never fit in with my friends. So though I called them my friends, it's just that where I was going in my perspective of the world was totally different, because they couldn't relate to what I've gone through. They couldn't relate or understand the favor. I had a lot of friends that were jealous of me and like, well, how do you get all of this? And I was like, I can't explain it. I just made a choice. I made a decision. And at that time, I can't tell you that I knew what faith was, because I didn't. I didn't wake up every day and say, I'm going to live for God and I'm going to do this because God said it, until now. But back then, I was just waking up every day and just saying, hey, I'm just do the best I can. I'm out here living. I'm going to do whatever I got to do.
You had hope that you didn't realize was hope.
I had hope that didn't realize I was hope. Exactly. That didn't realize it was hope. So I feel like that's where God took the wheel and he gave his grace, because it wasn't that I was trying to control my life, but I ultimately gave him control. Even though I knew who God was, I knew the basic foundation. So I just say, God, whatever you got to do. So it's not where I was fighting something where I had to have faith back then, because I knew I could trust God. But it's hard to explain, because now that I know who God is, I know that God is Jehovah Jireh. I know that God is the provider. I know that God will provide all your needs. I know he's a promise keeper, promise maker. I didn't know these things then that I know now. So now I believe that I have more faith now, and it's harder because I have faith in God versus having faith in myself, thinking that I could do it all by myself.
Well, and I can say to you as a mentor from a mentor state that I look for a mentor in your life. I look forward to watching, because as you share your stories of resilience, and as I watch you even as a young woman develop, and the many blessings that are on your life now, just listening to your story from the past, the favor and the hand of God was on you before you entered into this world. And for every story of trauma and of crisis that you have shared and have experienced, it could have been so much worse. Just based on some of the things you have shared, based on some of the situations that you have been put in by no fault of your own, by the lack of protection, by the rejection, by the neglect. God had you covered, and I can't wait to be a part of watching how he uses you, your story, to bless other young women. What mindset shifts were crucial on your journey from survival mode to thriving now in your personal life, to thriving as a homeowner at 24, to thriving, you're almost about to finish your master's in a matter of months. What mindset shifts did you have to deal with to get to where you are today?
That's a difficult question.
Think about when I say mindset shifts, how you thought as a high schooler or middle schooler. How did that increase, or how did that change? And maybe you've already answered that. Maybe you have already answered that when you said, I always felt a tugging. I always felt something different and I didn't know what it was. But is there one incident? Well, maybe it was track. Maybe it was track, because to run track and to be great the way you were and to be offered scholarships, you have to be structured. You have to be committed. You have to be consistent. So maybe you've already answered that. But maybe in thinking about that question, I think about the people who have a victim mindset. You know, once a victim, always a victim. And a lot of times it impedes progress. It impedes the will to be successful. It impedes the fight that you need to keep moving when things get difficult. The faith that you need to overcome when darkness is all around. A lot of times people aren't able to do that because of that victim mentality. So what is there one specific incident, or was there ever a time? You know what, China? You know what I would like for you to share with the viewing audience? I can think of a time that you've shared with me that was a little comical but powerful, especially with me being a prior educator. Tell the audience very quickly what happened when you were in special ed classes. That could have been one of those times. You're very young.
Yes, I want to say I was in either the third or fourth grade, being in foster care, and I was lashing out a lot because of the kids were talking about me. Of course, I didn't come with the best looking clothes. My hair wasn't the best looking, so the kids would judge me. And then the teachers, not only the kids, but I also had the teachers talking about me, calling parents saying, hey, you need to keep your daughters away from China because she is a bad influence. She's got your kids fighting. Now they're in trouble, have ISS, and she has OSS. I was stealing at the time, stole from one of my teachers. I asked her, can I go to the bathroom? And I stole $20 and some candy out her purse. So it was that. I was in a lot of trouble and just couldn't stop. I thought it was the right thing to do. And then all of a sudden one day, they pulled me out of class and took me to special education classes. And while I'm in there, I'm just looking around, like, oh, this is okay. I'm looking at the playhouses. They have little playhouses where the kitchen and stuff. I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. Until I hear some of the kids, they having the monitors, and the monitors are having to speak for them. So I'm seeing kids drooling around, drooling. I was like, oh, no, I got to get up out of here. I do not belong in this class. And they had the monitors speaking for them. They having to feed them. And it was all because of my behavior. So that's like, oh, no. All right, I'm going to be good. I told them I won't throw another chair. I won't cuss out another teacher. I won't do nothing. I'm going to be on my best behavior. And then ever since then, I started just excelling. And
from there
to
advanced placement.
Yes, to honors classes. And all of a sudden, they want to test me for gifted. Mm-hmm. So doing all these, going from that that was, I want to say, educationally, where it changed the trajectory of where I was going, because
So all you did was looked around the room and said, "Oh, I don't belong here."
yes, because y'all not gonna feed me with no spoon, and I do not need nothing to talk for me. I know what I needs to say, so I was like, I got to get up out this class. This
That's
is
good.
not for me.
That's
So,
good. Okay, what skills do you think are critical based on what you've experienced to help break a cycle of poverty and a cycle of just being stuck? What skills, are there any skills that you can think of that you used or that you learned to have that could be an encouragement to someone else who needs to break out of that?
I want to say perseverance. There were so many things that tried to knock me down, get me out of character, take me out. But I was like, I'm not going through this. It was the perseverance inside of me, the motivation, the hard work, and not only that, the teamwork, because I didn't do it all on my own. I had my coaches where if I got off track, I had guidance with them. So they kept me on track. But I want to say most of all, I had the perseverance, because I just did not want to settle or let anything feel as if it took me out. And I believe that, and now that I think about it, that just came to my mind. I think that for so long, I was on defense. So whenever somebody told me I couldn't do anything, it made me want to show them that I can. That I could do anything that I put my mind to. So the determination, but most of all, perseverance. I put that to the work. I put that to the test. I pressed and I pressed and I pressed against every odd. And I wasn't going to let anybody tell me that I couldn't do anything, especially if I had to do it by myself.
I love it. I love it. Let's talk about paying it forward. What advice can you share with the streaming audience about success, especially those who are coming from a background like you of neglect, of rejection, of abuse? What advice can you share?
I want to say to keep on going, because you could still win with a bad hand. I remember hearing all about that, but you can definitely.
Where did you hear that?
I heard of that from my pastor, from my church, and remember people telling me about it. You should have been there to hear it, but just hearing the title was enough for me. It was bad. You can win with a bad hand, and not only that, but don't let anybody restrict you or limit you. And most of all, don't let your past limit you, and don't let your past restrict you, because the enemy will try to blindfold you through life to think that this is what you're limited to. This is what you're bound to. This is all that God has for you. This is all that you'll ever be able to mount up to do. So I want to say that you have to be able to be bold and be courageous to open your mouth and speak against those things, especially those thoughts that come to pass in our minds. And then not only that, but he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion. And that when you seek after God and when you honor him, he'll honor you. Even at times when you are faithless, it says that he'll remain faithful. So being able to trust God, that he'll do exactly what he said he does. Trust him. When he says that he's a promise maker, he makes all the promises, and that he's faithful and remains faithful to making those promises come to pass. So remain faithful in him, even at times where the storms look larger than he is and look larger than you. Just keep on pressing and just keep on pressing, and the fruits of your labor will come to pass, and they will manifest. You just have to keep on pressing.
Yeah, and I can't quote it verbatim, but I love that quote from MLK that says, if you can't,
I know what you're talking about. If you can't walk, then crawl. That.
Yeah.
Even if you can't, what is it? If you
If
can't
it's
run,
crawl,
then walk.
If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk,
then crawl. And if you can't,
but whatever you do, just keep on moving.
Keep on going. Mm-hmm. And that's what I always told myself, even in the midst of the rejection and abandonment and the neglect. I was always accepted by God. And I didn't realize that until now, going through counseling, through reading, going to church, going to Bible study, getting in my Bible, seeing that God's rejection I mean, not God's rejection, man's rejection was God's acceptance. And that was a pivotal point to me because can't whatever God is meant for us, no man can take it away. Just whatever door has our name on it, no man can close. So once I got through my mind and drilled that and pierced that into my heart, I was unstoppable. I kept moving, I kept walking. Well, it'll be okay. I'll be all right. And I'll just keep on pressing.
Well, that was wonderful. And I was going to ask a question: how do you want your story to inspire others? But I think you just gave that answer. Let's look at closing with: is there anything particularly that you want to share, that you are grateful for, that may have seemed like a challenge at the time, but as you think back and look over your life, you realize it was the greatest blessing that you could ever have?
Yes, and I want to say that I didn't realize it until 2 months ago when I was in those counseling sessions, sitting in my pain, sitting in the rejection, the abandonment, the neglect. It wasn't until then that I realized that what I looked as a challenge of growing up without a mother and a father, and I used to label myself as a motherless child, a fatherless child, but in the end it was a disguise because my mom was the vehicle that got me here. My dad's DNA of the motivation, because he was a hustler, so the hustler got installed into me and downloaded into me from his genes. I look at that as a blessing in disguise because their DNA created this miracle child that should have been a statistic, that should have been a teenage mom, that should have been a high school dropout, that should be in jail, should be a prostitute. I should be all of these things, but in disguise. God said, "No, though you are motherless and fatherless, I take you on as my own. I give you, yes, I give you to these people. I give you to man, but you're always mine. And if they don't do right, I bring you back home." So that was a blessing to me because when I look back and look at the people that I surround myself with and look through friends that I've had and people from my past, I'm further along than they are, despite them growing up with a mother and the father, having more than I had then. But now I see how God has blessed me exceedingly and abundantly above all that I could ask or think now, according to the power that works within. So,
I could sit here all day with you. That I'm amazed. I'm amazed when I spend time with you. I'm amazed when I share with you. I'm amazed to watch you grow. I'm amazed to watch the amount of growth you've already ascertained in the several years that I have been in your life and you've been in mine. And I just want to say to the viewing audience, this is your first time seeing Miss China on Legacy Talk 3N, but it definitely won't be your last time because there's so much more that she can share, and there's so much more to come. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, have a great one.